Continuing on with the show here now, we're going to get into some AFC East wide receiver rankings that I have pulled up here. Last time we talked about the AFC North, and now we move down a division to the AFC East, talking about the Bills and their new wide receiver group, the Miami Dolphins adding Odell Beckham Jr., the Jets with all the new weapons as well on the offensive side, where do they fit it, and also the Patriots, not excluding them, and all the new weapons that they have in the quarterback play. How do they all rank in my power rankings this episode? Well, we're going to get into it right away, and starting at number 4, we have those New England Patriots falling from grace a little bit here with just looking back 4 years ago, how they were close to the mountaintop, how close they were to, just being near the top, the elite of the elite, and now where they find themselves now, it's very odd and very uncharted territories for, I'm sure, these fans and how they expect this team to play, and it all really stems from the offensive side of the ball. Very new group and a very young group as well. Really led by these three guys here, Kendrick Bourne, Juju Smith-Schuster, and KJ Osborne, also who they signed in free agency. They really have a lot of options when it comes to who they're throwing the ball to and who they want to make plays out there. These three guys, along with Demario Douglas, rookie Jalen Polk, Jalen Reagor, Kayshon Boutte, and Tyquan Thornton, they have a lot of names and a lot of depth at that position, but how dependable and how consistent can those options be? I think the most consistent option that you have right now is probably Kendrick Bourne. I was pretty impressed with him the last season that he had. He did get injured, but also just leading up to that, he did seem like the most fluid and solid option that they have. But is he really the bona fide number one receiver that you would really want? That's sort of where you get to Juju Smith-Schuster. He was signed to the Patriots, and sort of after moving around a little bit, could he really now blossom into that number one wide receiver position and into that role for this young team? Again, another question mark if Juju could really do that. There are some question marks even still if he will continue on the team as well recently coming up. So that's something to monitor. And also KJ Osborne, another one of those options. Solid with the Minnesota Vikings, but again, can you trust him to do it on his own? Did he really benefit a lot from Justin Jefferson and benefiting from the lack of attention on him and really blossoming into that role? Can he now come and carry that over into the New England Patriots? It all has to do with them, obviously, and their skill set, but now you look at the quarterback situation that the Patriots find themselves in, maybe not yet into the Drake May era, but you would expect it to be at least somewhat better than it was last year with Bailey Zappi, Mac Jones, and that whole situation was just not pretty or efficient by any means. So it's hard to think that could get worse. So you do have some hope for this group to really, finally produce into something that you can really be proud of and be dependent on going forward, because the running game, it seems like to be the most reliable option that they have at this point. It seems pretty efficient, but you have to get some dynamic play out of these guys. There is some potential there, a lot of young guys, but at the same time, do you have to monitor the expectations with that group and maybe, just maybe, look towards the future and maybe still look out for that number one really talented wide receiver that you will eventually get on your team for Drake May. But that is the fourth team on my list, the New England Patriots, which means at number 3 I have the Buffalo Bills. Maybe a bit of a surprise here because the Bills just lost their best receiver in recent years in Stefon Diggs, obviously trading him to the Houston Texans, and now they're left with a pretty young team, young receiver group of their own, really led by Dawson Knox, who you see there on your left. One of the oldest guys on this team and one of the guys to really catch a pass from Josh Allen in a regular season game, along with Khalil Shakir, who is still on the team. And then you get into the other guys, the younger guys who I have, pictured in there as the main targets, who I expect to really elevate themselves in Stefon Diggs' absence. The middle guy there, Keon Coleman, the rookie receiver out of Florida State. I expect him to really blossom into that wide receiver role. He has all the tools to do it. It's going to take some transition, obviously, but I really like him and what he could bring to this team. And also Dalton Kincaid had a very impressive year last year as a rookie. Really developed a great connection with Josh Allen and how offensive coordinator Joe Brady really runs things over there, now sort of basing it off of the run. I think this could be very beneficial for the Bills if they continue to just go down this avenue of running the ball a bit more with Josh Allen or with James Cook. You get into more 12 personnel, and you might not have the eye-popping names like a Stefon Diggs or these other weapons that these other teams have around the league. But if you just strategize it well and game plan it for it accordingly, I think they could have a lot of success. They had a lot of success last year. Obviously, you had Stefon Diggs, but he really wasn't Stefon Diggs towards the end of the year. He didn't record a 100-yard game, I think, after week 6 or week 8. After that, it was really mostly a tight end show, a running game show, and I think now they have more willing guys to do that and more willing guys to play for the team. That's really the message that Joe Brady is emphasizing now, that this offense sort of identifies themselves as. All the guys are going to get a piece of the pie, and if they share it accordingly and this works efficiently and they execute on these plays, I think along with these three guys, you have Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who's solid, Curtis Samuel as well, KJ Hamler, Matt Collins. Not, again, the most eye-popping names, but they certainly can contribute something if you scheme for it very well and control the game with the running game more so than not. Keon Coleman is probably the guy that has the most potential to do that, and if you can really get him to develop quickly, then that's even better for you. But to monitor the expectations here a little bit, I think is warranted, and to have him at third and not fourth, where most people would probably have him, I think is something to keep an eye on, and how this team could be sneaky good with Josh Allen, obviously, at quarterback. Always gives you a good chance to still be one of the top offenses, at least in your division. But at number 2, moving on, would be the New York Jets. Very exciting offseason for them this year. Obviously, an offensive group led by that man on your left, Garrett Wilson, the third-year wide receiver now, I want to say, if my memory serves me right, leading this offense now that you add Mike Williams to in the middle there. You have to monitor how he is with health, but a very good number 2 option there for the New York Jets. And also Xavier Gipson, maybe not the most well-known name, but making a lot of plays in OTAs, and I think he has a good chance of stepping into that wide receiver 3 role for the New York Jets. And also, behind those 3 guys, you have young guys like Malachi Corley, Alan Lazard, if he could contribute a little bit more. Not in the best of spots with New York Jets fan bases and how much he has contributed recently, but he has that great connection with Aaron Rodgers. Maybe he could step it up. And if you can get even more than you did from him this year, it'll only be even better now because you have more options to not have to defer to Alan Lazard, which he could be in a spot where that just isn't his role anymore, but now at least you have better options. Garrett Wilson maturing into that wide receiver 1. Mike Williams hopefully staying healthy. Those 2 guys will probably get the majority of the attention anyway, and Alan Lazard could probably benefit off of that even more. And also in terms of versatility and what each of them can bring, Garrett Wilson pretty much can do everything. You have Mike Williams as a deep ball, big body, contested catch wide receiver, and also Xavier Gipson working out of the slot, capable of doing it outside, but really blossoming and really being as efficient as he can be in the slot, operating the middle of the field. You have a lot of different abilities you could use on this offense for Aaron Rodgers as well. Getting a little bit older, but surrounding him with so much talent, I think it is an exciting time for the New York Jets fan base, and having all these great options that you can really play off of. And also Breece Hall there carrying the rock out of the backfield. I do know that is the running game, but also getting involved that way and opening up the passing game, I think could be a very, very beneficial thing for the New York Jets this year. And there is a lot of pressure on them, but now I think they're definitely more equipped to do something with that pressure and not have the wheels fall off in the first couple of weeks. And then, Aaron Rodgers said it best. If he doesn't perform, if this team doesn't perform again after last season, most of them are probably gone anyway, and they're going to have to sort of rebuild this thing from the bottom up. So a lot of pressure, but now definitely better equipped to handle that and execute at a higher level. So they're at number 2, which means obviously only one team left. The Miami Dolphins are my number 1 receiver group in this division in the AFC East, just mainly because I believe they have 2 number 1s. Tyreek Hill obviously goes without saying, and Jalen Waddle, quietly being one of the most underrated receivers, I think. Could be a number one on any of these teams in the AFC East and also just around the league as well. Has recorded a 1,000-yard season in each of his 3 years in the NFL. Got paid accordingly as to how well he has produced on the field. And then those two guys already had been pretty successful with this offense and the Miami Dolphins benefiting off of these two guys. But they really now needed somebody else to sort of step up, because when you get to the playoffs, as you saw this past year, teams really focus in on getting rid of those two guys, not having them break the game open for the Miami Dolphins. And that's where maybe some people will have their doubts around that man in the middle there, OBJ, and how much he could really contribute. But I think his time with the Baltimore Ravens didn't really paint him in the best of light. It just didn't fit for me. I didn't think his skill set and what he could bring to the table really was what the Baltimore Ravens needed. Yeah, he had some solid games and some solid contributions here or there, but he did suffer with injuries, and now, again, not something that really boosts his chances of people being confident in him and how much he can contribute. But I think now, whereas with the Baltimore Ravens, you have a rookie in Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews is a tight end, so really not truly gaining too much attention or being as much of a threat to opposing defenses. He was sort of looked at as a guy to be a very good number two and maybe a little bit of a number one and a teacher for Zay Flowers in Baltimore. Now, in Miami, he's not really expected to be that at all. They already have two number ones that could pretty much do everything. Go deep, work the middle of the field, short routes, screen plays, just quick throws as well. Those two guys can bring so much to the table that OBJ doesn't really have to do much and can just really blossom in what he does best. Beating corners one-on-one, maybe moving or all over this offense could be something that, again, benefits him with all the manipulation that the Dolphins do before the snap of the ball. All of that can really benefit OBJ, and I think he is in for a good year this year to surprise a lot of people and prove the doubters wrong, because, again, he doesn't have to be that main option, and behind him, maybe not the most eye-catching names, but they are so top-heavy, the Miami Dolphins, that I think they could, handle that with guys like Durham Smythe, Jonnu Smith, Braxton Berrios as depth options. They have to just remain consistent and maybe get a little bit more from those guys, but overall, I think they have too much talent at the top to not be on or in my number one spot in these AFC East divisional rankings for the receiver group. So again, as always, let me know what you guys think of my rankings. Do you guys have confidence in the Dolphins being that number one receiver group in this division? Do you think the Bills should be a little bit higher? Or the Jets, or are you not just buying into the Jets hype for this 2024 season? Leave your thoughts in the chat box during the live episode, or also in the comments section after the show has concluded. But in saying that, we will move on with the rest of the show, going into a quick break now, and when we return, getting into that story on London wanting to host a Super Bowl. How does the NFL feel about that? And is it possible with all the history around the Super Bowl, obviously, how important it is to the United States? Is it possible sometime in the near future? I'll get into those details when we return, so we'll be right back after this break.